What's going on YouTube? It's your Aunt Jordan, it's Yo Money. Today we have an interview with Brooke. She's a welfare benefit advisor.
My name's Brooke, I'm a benefits advisor.
A role she's been doing for about
around 18 months. Prior to that, I was working in different areas of the housing association.
Over the years she's built up full knowledge of the housing sector and
the resident support available in social housing. I'm originally from Yorkshire and I moved to London 3 years ago. So I've only worked in the London housing context, which it can be quite different across the country.
How are people referred to you? How do you get your cases?
For instance, if you were to go to Citizens Advice, you could just go as, member of the public off the street. You could just walk into Citizens Advice, explain your situation, and they would appoint you an advisor. But I'm not as easily accessible to the public because I work for the housing association. So how it works is the housing officers that deal with the tenants on a day-to-day basis, they will identify an issue with somebody's finances, income, benefits, or they're trying to liaise with council and they're running into difficulty. They will then inform me of that and I will contact the tenant and pick up the case and start working with them.
So let's say this case is just landed on your desk. What's the first steps? How do you go about assessing someone's case, someone's needs?
Everyone works a little bit differently, but what I like to do is the first time I talk to a tenant, I like to get an overall picture of what their situation is. So I'd like to know who they're living with, whether they're working, what their income is, and I'll go through as much as possible everything that they've got coming in and everything that they've got coming out, because it gives me a really good picture of why they might be in crisis or in difficulty. So if I can see what wages they're on, what benefits they may or may not be on, and what outgoings they have that can't be changed, or whether they've got outgoings related to a disability that's meaning it's more expensive for them. That gives me a really good picture of that person's financial circumstances and why they might be struggling. And it also means I don't really have to ask them directly. Sometimes they don't want to tell you, if it's my first interaction with somebody, I don't necessarily have the trust there. So if I'm able to just put a picture together from their incomings and outgoings about what might be hard for them, then it gives me an opportunity to discuss that further.
So you mentioned that kind of that challenge, that first initial interaction, the bond that you mentioned before is not quite there. So I guess you have to build a picture of this based on what you can see in front of you. Do people come forward easily, or do you have to kind of like push to get, okay, what is this, or what's the situation here?
It can depend on the person really. So if someone might be, if I can see something, that they haven't disclosed to me, but something's not really adding up, I can probably get a sense of like they might be embarrassed, they might, they don't know me, they might not want to share that information. I find that clarifying how I can help helps build the relationship. So if I'm calling from the housing association, i.e. their landlord, if I just call and say I'm calling from, then they're going to be a bit standoffish because they might think I'm calling about the rent. So I always explain, I'm a benefits advisor, I've been asked to give you a call just to find out a bit more about your financial situation and see if there's anything that we can do to help. What I can do to help is help you access benefits, look at any outstanding debts that you've got and see if there's anything that we can apply to reduce the debts. If there's anything that you're in need of at the home, like appliances, clothing, we can take a look at that. I might be able to apply for things to get those. So to give an overview of what I'm able to help with and make it clear that I'm not there to criticise, I'm not there to judge them, I'm just there to make sure that they have anything that they might be entitled to that they're not already getting.
I don't know if this is in your remit, but let's say, for instance, someone had, like, you can see a gambling addiction, or there's a lot of betting websites. Would that be something you would intervene on, or would you more refer that back to the officer?
It's something I'd discuss with the person. It can be obviously difficult because if I don't know all the detail and I don't know what they're comfortable with, I would probably skirt around the topic, see what they're comfortable telling me, and just make them aware of what support is available. As a benefits advisor, I can't provide counselling, I can't provide debt advice. I'm limited in what I can do, but I'm aware of what organisations there are locally or nationally that might be able to help that person. So it's a matter of signposting that person. If they're not comfortable sharing some information with me, just making sure I give them all the information that I can about what I think is going on, and then they can choose to take me up on that, or they can choose to share more with me. It's about so any kind of advice work really is not about doing something for somebody. It's about giving them the information so they're able to make the decision to do something, with you or for themselves. I have to respect that. If somebody was at risk, of harming themselves or somebody else, then I would have to discuss that, with somebody else at the organisation. And I would make sure to tell the tenant that I was having to do that. But in terms of their individual decisions, I'm not here to intrude on that. They can do what they want.
It's good to know. The other thing I want to ask about was the impact of COVID-19. How has that affected your workload? Have you seen influx of cases? Is it different types of support you're now offering? Is it, can you touch on that?
Yeah, sure. So with COVID, especially when it first began, when we first went into lockdown last year, there was a big increase in unemployment, people being made redundant, etc. And so there was, from my experience, there's a lot of people that have been referred to us that just don't know what to do. They've lost their jobs, they haven't claimed benefits before, they just are lost. I don't know what to do next. I don't have any money, I don't have any savings, but I don't know where to go. So that's been big for us, directing people to claim an unemployment benefit as a first step. Also, some people that have been on furlough sometimes don't realise is, even though they're on furlough, they might have seen a reduction in their income, so they still might be eligible for a means of benefit like universal credit. Okay. So because if you're on a really, really low income and then you're only receiving 80% of that instead, then that is going to affect your ability to pay rent or your ability to go out and spend your shopping like you were doing previously. 20% of your income actually is quite a lot. If you're already stretched, if your budget is stretched, 20% of your income is significant. So if you're on a low income, I mean, it's difficult to verify what a low income is, depending on how many people are in your family and where you're living. But I would advise that if your income has reduced as a result of being on furlough, you can still claim universal credit. Something that people don't know, and I come across all the time, is people that have been working and then they stop working, and I'll be looking at what they were earning before, and I was saying, well, why didn't you apply for universal credit? And they would say, well, I didn't know that I was eligible. And just, they might have been working part-time on minimum wage. And universal credit is designed to top up those earnings. So you can work, you can earn a low income, and then universal credit will look at that income and give you a little bit more to top it up to make sure that you're at the national living standard. But a lot of people don't know that.
So how would you find out about what you're actually entitled to? Say you're Joe Blogs or Miss Blogs. How would I know what I can actually claim?
A really good website that I usually direct people towards is called entitled2.co.uk. So it does what it says on the tin. It's a benefits calculator that you can visit and put your information in. You can do it anonymously. I think you don't need to share very personal details. It doesn't save any of your data. Basically, you can just put in your family makeup and your income, etc., and it will calculate what benefits you might be entitled to. And then, following that, if you were to need support claiming the benefit, you could reach out to, if you're with a housing association, they might have resident support that's able to help you claim, or you could go see Citizens Advice and ask for help applying for the benefit. Also, Turn to Us, which is another benefits calculator, and it's also a finance grants search. What that means is you can look in your area or search by area of employment or a disability that you might have, and you can see what charitable grants are out there. Basically, it's a pot of money by an organisation, and if you meet the criteria and you're struggling, you can apply for that grant and might be able to help you with living costs in some way. It might be money towards clothing, it might be money towards your utility bills. And you can ask for a benefits advisor to help you with that, or you can just do it on your own. Okay. Depending on your situation.
So I always feel like there's like a stigma towards benefits, or like people have a bit of pride and say, okay, I don't want to kind of claim this. But honestly, that's something I've struggled with myself actually. When I was unemployed, I didn't want to claim benefits. I didn't want to go on a JSA, job seekers allowance, because I felt like, one, that would admit like, okay, I need help, I can't do it myself. And two, I don't know, I just felt like, it wasn't for me. I don't know, not that it wasn't for me, it was that I wasn't eligible, or I wasn't qualified for it. I didn't really know much about it. I just always thought, I didn't know much about it actually. It's just the not knowing. Honestly, yeah. What would you say to someone who I guess was put off from claiming benefits, or felt like it's bruising their pride, or to know that they need help? Like, what would you say to someone like that?
Well, firstly, it's common to think that. I experience a lot of people coming to me that they might feel ashamed, or they might feel, I don't want to claim benefits, I can do this on my own. And yeah, I understand why you would feel that, especially for instance if you've been used to earning your own money forever and never having to rely on anybody, and then you have a crisis and you're like, oh my god, I can't ask anybody else for help. But I try to make people look at it a different way. The benefit system is not designed. It's designed for everybody that is in need of support, basically. So if you're in a crisis, or you don't have savings and you've lost your job, that's what it's there for. It's like, that's the point. The point is for you to have some money coming in while you are able to get back into work, or to improve your health if it's something to do with a health or disability. But the stigma around it is, I mean, it's a political and social issue, really. As like somebody that is dealing with people on benefits, I can tell you that there's a lot of misconceptions about people on benefits, not being able to budget, or spending too much money on this, or etc. etc. It's not really the case. It's just they're just normal people. That they're on low incomes. It's that simple. And as a society, we need to be able to provide for everybody. As the government is providing the benefits to make sure everybody has an acceptable living standard. And a lot of people in their life are likely to have a point where they need to lean on other people. That includes leaning on the government, especially if you've paid into that system, if you've been working. So why wouldn't you then get what you're entitled to if you're in a time of difficulty. Also, just quickly on if you lose your job or you're employed for whatever reason and you have been paying your national insurance contributions for the past 2 years, which most people will have done if they've been working, then you're entitled, before you go into universal credit, you'd be entitled to new style job seekers allowance. So what that means is it's a contributory based benefit. So because you've paid in for 2 years, you are then eligible to receive job seekers allowance. It's only for a limited time. I think it's less than 6 months. But I mean, that is very direct. You've paid in, so you can take it out. And so that maybe that will sit differently with people. Then following that, if you're not able to go to work for whatever reason and you don't have sufficient savings, you can go universal credit. That will be means tested. So the style JSA isn't means tested, which means as long as you've paid in, even if you've savings, you can still receive the benefit. Whereas universal credit is reliant on savings. If you've got savings of more than £16,000 in the bank, you're unable to receive any means tested benefit. But I think the majority of people don't have £16,000 in the bank. So even if you have some savings, you'd likely still be entitled to something. Also, what helps with the stigma is just, you know, if you are able to access the support, just talking to somebody about it. Yeah. If you can go to Citizens Advice or, you know, get a benefits advisor through your housing association or, you know, whatever support network is available to you locally, just talking about it with someone will help. You might, because it's ultimately your decision what you do next, but they'll be able to tell you specific to your situation what you can get, what you're entitled to, and then, you know, if you're in need of anything, whether they'd be able to help you with that.
That's a good point about to talk to someone, because again, I've struggled with that at one point, and I just felt like I had to deal with it all by myself. Like, but it was a thing where, like, the help support was actually there. It was like they were willing to, they were happy to, but I wouldn't have known if I didn't ask, or if the conversation didn't happen. So I think that's a good point you made, just to talk to someone about it. As well, I don't know if this would be something you would recommend. If someone who is struggling, but they have adult children in the house and that they're maybe earning some money, would you suggest that they maybe contribute to some bills, or is that not really something you would recommend?
So for people that might not know, if you're receiving a benefit and you have, adult grown-up children living with you, if you're receiving a means tested benefit, most of the time they will take me out of your benefit, because the expectation is that your adult children, they're old enough now to be able to contribute to the house. So if I had an adult child with me, then if my benefit was reduced, the government expects you to be asking for me to ask my child, they're like, can you chip in 20 quid? So if that's not happening, while it's kind of an issue within the family, if then that's affecting your outcomes as a family, if you're in debt because of it, then most of the time your landlord is going to ask you to pay that. As a benefits advisor, it's not 100% my place to say, because that's kind of determining how people should spend their money. But I would have the conversation with them and say, is this possible to do this? Because you have to look at, you know, how this is affecting you. If your child is not contributing to the household, but it's putting you into debt, I think maybe you should look at that. Yeah. It's more so talking about the implications of it, because that's not going to be a good enough explanation for why you're in debt with your landlord. if you're not paying the rent because your child won't contribute. So while I can't tell somebody how to spend their money, I can make them aware of what might happen if they choose to keep doing that. If it was to escalate, and then you might be looking at legal action against you. You know, just making people aware of why the benefit is reduced because you've got a child living with you, or what might happen if you continue to not pay that money. Just making people aware of why things are the way they are can help them make their own decisions about it.
Okay. So what are some of the good resources out there that you would like to share to the viewers? I know you touched on Turn to Us.
So Entitled To, I know I seem like I'm plugging it a bit, but Entitled To is really good and simple to use just to find out what you might be able to get. So I really advocate for using that for anybody. In terms of getting financial grants, while you can use Turn to Us, I actually recommend just searching online for grants based on either current or former employment. So for instance, if someone works in retail, if you just were to search retail financial grants, some would come up. I know that there's the Retail Trust who offer financial grants to people that have worked in retail in the past or currently. There's also grocery aid for people that work in supermarkets. But because there's so many, depending on what you've done for work, you can search for it and likely there'll be something. Or if you have a disability or a long-term health condition and you meet the criteria for certain grants, also those. So I can't, because there's so many different health conditions, I can't really list any off the top of my head, but if you're affected by something and you're struggling, then if you just literally were to search, you know, disability grants, Crohn's disease, and see what comes up. Because Turn to Us, it gets good, but sometimes it can get the smaller grants or the ones that are more niche.
Yeah.
I'd advise just searching for yourself. Other resources, something that is really good is if you're in utility debt, debt with your water, gas, electric, etc. A lot of providers have customer assistance funds, which are things that you can apply for if you are in debt and you're not able to clear the debt yourself. So you can firstly ask to be put onto an affordable payment plan, which is kind of standard in managing any debt. But you can also apply to their customer assistance fund and see if they will reduce some of the debt for you. So if you owed £500 and you put the case to them that you couldn't afford to pay all of it, they might clear a few hundred for you. And then that's, you know, a weight off your mind. And they basically have a big pot of money, and every year whenever that pot runs out, it runs out. But then the next year they'll likely have more money. And Thames Water also do an application where if you use more water as a result of having a large family, so if you have more than 3 children in the household, you can apply to get your bill capped. So because you need more water, you know, you can't help that. They'll cap your bill at a certain amount. Same goes for if you have a qualifying disability where you need to use more water related to the management of that disability. And if you outside, I can't remember the exact amount. In London, if household income is less than 19,000 a year, you can also apply to Thames Water to get your bill capped on the basis of low income. So if you're paying quite a lot out for water and that's not affordable to you, I think they will cap it at £400 a year, roughly. And obviously, if you're not with Thames Water, if you're like outside London, then those water companies will also have really similar schemes. So I think that's helpful for people, because it's not such, you don't have to be in debt.
Yeah.
If you're not in debt, like sometimes people think like, I'm paying all my bills, I'm meeting all my bills, but I'm struggling. I'm not living, I have a lot of disposable income. I'm meeting everything. I'm just kind of like, making it through, but I'm not in debt. Then it might be quite helpful for you to get your bill capped.
And that's something I've never actually heard about or knew about. So that is really good.
Yes, exactly. Really good. I hadn't either until I started working in benefits advice. So it's worth looking at. And if you can access resident support, if you don't have a housing association, a big housing association that has support in-house, if you're in private rented, something like that, I'd recommend just go into citizens advice if you want to talk about anything, any financial difficulty, anything you're not sure of, because it's a free service, and then they can point you in the right direction, and it will help feel reassured about, you're not in this alone. Somebody can tell you what your options are, and somebody will likely be able to help you get through it. So that's what I'd always advise to people. Access the support that is available.
That is great. Thank you, Brooke. It's a pleasure speaking with you today, and hope to have you on again.
Thanks for having me, Johannes.